High-tech employee antitrust scandal. In the mid-2000s, Eric Schmidt and other Silicon Valley leaders, like Steve Jobs at Apple, secretly agreed not to recruit each other's employees. This no-poaching pact kept thousands of skilled workers stuck in place while wages stayed artificially low. Emails later revealed Schmidt telling Google's HR team to honor Apple's demands after a recruiter broke the rule, and he even ordered that these deals only be discussed verbally to avoid leaving a paper trail. The conspiracy came to light in 2010, leading to lawsuits and a $415 million settlement in 2015. While Schmidt framed it as a way to keep peace among executives, the scandal exposed how tech leaders colluded at workers' expense, prioritizing profits over fairness and innovation. It became one of the clearest examples of how even the most celebrated companies can quietly exploit their own workforce. Google's work in China and military ties. Eric Schmidt repeatedly defended Google's controversial projects in China, including partnerships with research institutes that critics argued could empower the Chinese military or strengthen censorship systems. Between 2010 and 2020, criticism peaked with projects like Dragonfly, a censored search engine designed to comply with Beijing's strict rules. U.S. military leaders, including Joint Chiefs Chairman Joseph Dunford, openly warned that Google's work indirectly helped China's military, while refusing similar cooperation with the U.S. Department of Defense. Schmidt dismissed these accusations, claiming technology advances are universal and not military-specific. But to critics, this defense ignored the reality that authoritarian governments could weaponize AI and data research. The controversy raised serious questions about whether profit and market access mattered more to Google than national security or democratic values. Gender discrimination and workplace misconduct at Google. During Schmidt's leadership era, Google was hit with serious gender discrimination and sexual misconduct scandals. The most infamous case was the $90 million exit package given to Android creator Andy Rubin, despite credible harassment allegations. This blew up in 2018 after a New York Times expose, sparking worldwide employee walkouts. Tens of thousands of Googlers across offices in New York, London, and Singapore protested against what they saw as a toxic boys' club culture. Schmidt defended Google's transparency, saying the protests showed employee empowerment, but many saw this as tone-deaf. To critics, the company had a pattern of quietly protecting powerful men while failing to protect women in the workplace. The scandal exposed how even the most admired tech giant had deep cracks in its culture of accountability. Personal relationship controversy and legal battles. Eric Schmidt's private life also turned into a public scandal. His long-term affair with PR executive Marcy Simon spiraled into years of bitter legal disputes and arbitration battles. What began as a personal relationship in the mid-2000s erupted into lawsuits after Schmidt tried to end things around 2014. Simon accused him of fraud and fought over money, assets, and confidentiality agreements. Court filings even revealed accusations of blackmail attempts and efforts to unseal confidential documents, dragging Schmidt into headlines for all the wrong reasons. Instead of fading away quietly, the dispute stretched on for years, resurfacing as recently as 2024. The controversy painted Schmidt not just as a tech leader, but as a billionaire entangled in messy, personal power struggles, showing how wealth and influence can't always shield reputations from public scrutiny. Tax avoidance and offshore strategies. Eric Schmidt also faced heavy criticism for masterminding Google's aggressive tax strategies that shifted billions of dollars to low-tax havens like Ireland and Bermuda. The controversy hit its peak between 2012 and 2016, when media investigations exposed how Google funneled profits offshore to avoid paying fair taxes in countries where it made massive revenues. Schmidt defended the practice, calling it legal and simply capitalism. But governments, watchdogs, and the public saw it differently. Critics argued that while ordinary citizens and small businesses carried the tax burden, Google was exploiting loopholes to enrich shareholders. For Schmidt, the episode cemented his image as a leader willing to play the system, highlighting the gap between legal strategies and ethical responsibility in big tech. Influence over U.S. government science policy. In 2022, reports revealed that Eric Schmidt's private foundation had quietly funded parts of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. This meant a billionaire with major investments in AI and tech was effectively bankrolling salaries and resources inside a government advisory office. The arrangement, traced back to 2021, raised serious ethical concerns. Critics warned it gave Schmidt an unusual level of influence over federal science policy, while he simultaneously backed private ventures that stood to benefit from regulatory decisions. Schmidt defended his involvement as philanthropy, but to many, it blurred the line between public service and private profit. The controversy highlighted the dangers of letting wealthy insiders shape government priorities in fields that directly intersect with their business empires. AI regulation conflicts and undisclosed investments. As AI grew into a global issue, Schmidt positioned himself as a key advisor to U.S. lawmakers on how to regulate the technology. But investigations in 2021 to 2022 revealed he was also heavily investing in AI startups at the same time. By shaping draft laws while failing to disclose his financial ties, Schmidt created what critics called a textbook case of regulatory capture, where those making the rules also profit from them. His influence on policy, combined with private stakes in emerging companies, raised red flags about self-dealing and transparency. To the public, it looked less like unbiased guidance and more like a billionaire quietly writing rules to benefit his own portfolio. The episode deepened suspicions about how tech leaders use political access to tilt the playing field in their favor. Remote work policy criticism. In mid-2024, Eric Schmidt stirred controversy with his outspoken criticism of Google's flexible remote work policies. At a Stanford talk, he argued that the one-day-a-week office model would cripple Google's competitiveness in fields like AI. His comments sparked immediate backlash from employees and remote work advocates, who saw his stance as elitist and out of touch with modern workplace realities. Many argued that innovation wasn't tied to physical presence, but to trust, flexibility, and access to global talent. Schmidt later walked back his remarks, but the damage was done. The episode reinforced his image as a leader clinging to old-school corporate control, highlighting the growing divide between billionaires' perspectives and the workforce shaping the future. Boardroom conflicts and Apple resignation. In 2006, Eric Schmidt joined Apple's board of directors at the invitation of Steve Jobs, a move that was initially seen as a strong alliance between two of Silicon Valley's most influential figures. However, by 2008, tensions grew as Google expanded into smartphones with Android, directly competing with Apple's iPhone. Jobs reportedly felt betrayed, viewing Schmidt's dual role as a conflict of interest. The tension reached a breaking point in 2009 when Schmidt resigned from Apple's board under mounting scrutiny from regulators and criticism from Apple insiders. This resignation marked the unraveling of one of Silicon Valley's most high-profile partnerships. It showcased how Schmidt's ambitions and Google's rapid growth often placed him at odds with allies, fueling the perception that he prioritized power and expansion over loyalty. Data privacy hypocrisy. Throughout his career, Eric Schmidt often dismissed public fears about online privacy. He famously said, "If you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place." The comment was widely criticized as tone-deaf, especially coming from the head of a company collecting massive amounts of user data. At the same time, reports surfaced that Schmidt himself was fiercely protective of his own privacy, even working to keep details about his personal life and real estate out of the press. This contradiction between his public stance and private behavior fueled accusations of hypocrisy. For many, it symbolized the double standards of Silicon Valley leaders, encouraging users to accept surveillance while shielding themselves from the same scrutiny. The controversy still lingers today, shaping debates about tech ethics and personal freedoms in the digital era.